Right, guys, here goes nothing. Let's jinx it. Khamzat Chimaev takes on Gilbert Burns in the feature fight of UFC 273, Volkanovski versus the Korean Zombie, and I can't wait for this welterweight matchup. I've been looking forward to this one for a very long time. It's finally here this weekend. Fingers crossed. Hopefully things go down this weekend and there's no last-minute pullouts or anything like that. Khamzat Chimaev, the surging contender, finally tests if the hype is real against Gilbert Burns, a top 5 mainstay of the welterweight division, coming off a win against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, so it's not like you can say that after his Usman loss, he's not the same fighter, because he's coming off a win right now. He's a very legitimate top contender in the welterweight division, and now he's taking on Khamzat Chimaev to see if he can hold the gates at the top of the welterweight division, and the other top welterweight contenders, including the champion himself, Kamaru Usman, are trying to rally with Gilbert Burns to prevent Khamzat Chimaev from making his way into the top 3 and potentially earning himself a title shot against Kamaru Usman with a big win this weekend over Gilbert Burns. And I know I might jinx it by saying this. I think Khamzat Chimaev is going to make it look ridiculously easy, and I think he's going to destroy Gilbert Burns in the first round. I've seen a lot of comments around on social media comments, okay, saying things like, Gilbert Burns is going to get the upset win. You guys are sleeping on Gilbert Burns. Absolute disrespect for Gilbert Burns. I am disrespecting Gilbert Burns. I've never seen anything like Khamzat Chimaev before in my history of watching this sport. When you watch Khabib Nurmagomedov in his first few matchups in the UFC, there are decisions. There are rounds that are close. When you watch other surging contenders, they take punches on the chin. They get taken down. They have moments of adversity and then they come back and win. Khamzat Chimaev has changed what it means to be a prospect in the UFC. Paddy Pimblett has faced 2 UFC-level opponents in his career, and he's been hit like by 2 punches in those 2 fights, and that's already enough for people to say this guy's never going to be a champion, because Khamzat Chimaev, single-handedly, in my opinion, has changed what it means to be a prospect in the UFC. He has been absolutely flawless. I believe he's been hit by 2 punches in his UFC career so far. He beat John Phillips. He beat Rhys McKee. I don't think much about those wins, to be honest with you, but he made it look easy, and that's what he was supposed to do. He destroyed both of them. Looked amazing. I picked him to destroy both of those opponents as well. Then I was unsure about Khamzat Chimaev. He takes on Gerald Meerschaert, and I was saying to myself, I believe Khamzat Chimaev's going to win against Gerald Meerschaert, but is this a little bit of a step too soon for Khamzat Chimaev? Rhys McKee is absolute garbage, and he took the matchup on short notice. He destroys Gerald Meerschaert, who recently is on a win streak of his own, including over names like Makhmud Muradov himself, by finishing the second round. Gerald Meerschaert is no joke, and Khamzat Chimaev, up a weight class against one of the biggest middleweights and a veteran of the sport in Gerald Meerschaert, marched him down and within 30 seconds laid him out cold against a cage by first round KO. I've never seen anything like this. Then he goes in there against Li Jingliang, and we're thinking, you know what, it could be a bit of a fun scrap. I picked Khamzat Chimaev to destroy Li Jingliang in the first round. I thought he'd get the win. And then Li Jingliang gets destroyed in the first round. And I'm just going to say this right now. I know I may be sleeping on Gilbert Burns, and maybe I'm disrespecting Gilbert Burns. I would pick Gilbert Burns to edge out an incredibly fun decision win against Li Jingliang. I don't think Gilbert Burns is good enough or big enough to beat a guy with the size advantage over him that Gerald Meerschaert has. I don't even mind Gerald Meerschaert's chances in that fight just being too big and being able to outmuscle Gilbert Burns to a win in that fight. This guy's different, Khamzat Chimaev, okay? This is not a hype train, and it might end up a hype train if Gilbert Burns hits him on the chin for the first time in his career, where he gets hit by a really clean shot. I know Aliskerov landed a couple of punches on him, but they weren't really clean shots that snapped his head back or anything like that. So Gilbert Burns, if he does land that first clean shot that Chimaev has taken pretty much in his entire career, maybe we find out that Khamzat Chimaev, who hasn't really taken a big shot before, is shocked by being hit by a big shot in the biggest stage ever, and he doesn't react too well whatsoever, and Gilbert Burns ends up finishing. I'm well aware of that. But this is not a hype train. I'm not jumping on a hype train. I'm being realistic here. He was speaking to Dana White in the middle of manhandling Li Jingliang like a baby. Li Jingliang is a very, very big welterweight. And Khamzat Chimaev carried him like a child while speaking to Dana White and then proceeded to destroy him on the ground with amazing grappling skill. I feel like Khamzat Chimaev is going to go out there and beat Gilbert Burns. He's got a reach advantage on the feet, and it's quite a big reach advantage as well. I think he's got something like a 4-inch reach advantage over Gilbert Burns, 75-inch reach for 6'2". That's nothing too crazy. I mean, I think I have something like a 77, 78-inch reach at like 6'2", but I'm like quite a tall 6'2". But Khamzat Chimaev has quite a long reach for the welterweight division, at least at 75 inches. Gilbert Burns, 71-inch reach. Pretty big reach as well for his height. Either way, I feel like Khamzat Chimaev is going to go out there and just smash in the first round. I think he's got different level of grappling. And I know a lot of people are saying stuff like, man, you can't sleep on Burns' jiu-jitsu. I'm going to sleep on Burns' jiu-jitsu because I've learned one thing over the past few years of watching this sport. Especially, jiu-jitsu don't mean jack shit. And I dare the MMA gods and the jiu-jitsu gods, those little nerdy gods that they have up there with their fucking glasses and books. All the other gods of MMA are like jacked fucking chads. But the jiu-jitsu god's probably some fucking nerd with glasses reading a fucking book about fucking paleontology or some bullshit like that, okay? I dare the jiu-jitsu gods. Prove that your sport is good. Okay? Prove that your martial art form is legit in this fight. Because Gilbert Burns has a massive amount of credentials in jiu-jitsu. He doesn't have a single submission at welterweight. And he doesn't have many at lightweight. I think he submitted Mike Davis. He has an armbar win over some other guy. He beat Alex Oliveira at lightweight earlier in his career as well at lightweight. And that was by submission too. But other than that, I don't really know of any high-profile fighters that Gilbert Burns has been able to submit. I just saw a headline by someone making a statement before, and I was like, he's right, in all honesty. They were talking about the fact that Wonderboy is like a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. It might have been Brendan... I'm using Brendan Schaub to back my argument. Oh, God. Maybe I have made him. Wait. Is Khamzat Chimaev so good that Brendan Schaub sounds intelligent? Let's move on from this topic. I saw a statement from a guy saying that Wonderboy is like a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and Gilbert Burns had him down for 3 rounds, like the good majority of the 3 rounds. I believe he had something like 10 minutes of control time over Wonderboy Thompson, and he never submitted him in that time. I feel like Chimaev has a much higher level of grappling than Wonderboy, and God only knows what Chimaev would do if he got a hand on Wonderboy. If he got a good grip on Wonderboy and got a takedown, I know for a fact he would destroy Wonderboy by first round finish in whatever way he wanted to. I believe Khamzat Chimaev's going to win. He's too big, and this is something that I also need to bring into the argument as well. Fair play Burns has his jiu-jitsu credentials, even though he never uses them in MMA and never shows any good sign of jiu-jitsu whatsoever, especially during his welterweight run where he hasn't really shown any good sign of jiu-jitsu in any of his matchups whatsoever. So maybe, just maybe, like MMA likes to do, Gilbert Burns will show the best grappling of his entire career against the best grappler he's ever taken on in his entire career. Because even against Damian Maia, he wanted nothing to do with the ground game. He was escaping the ground game, finding his way out of positions, and he showed good scrambles in those positions, don't get me wrong. But I truly believe at this point, factoring in the strength and the youth and just the pure aggressiveness and high testosterone of Khamzat Chimaev, he's probably more dangerous than Damian Maia was at that point. Damian Maia was an old man. He's very old. I know Gilbert Burns has been calling out Colby Covington for taking on old opponents like Tyron Woodley and Damian Maia and all the other people that Gilbert Burns has beaten himself, like Wonderboy, who's also an old opponent as well. Apparently he doesn't have many mirrors in his house, old Gilbert Burns, because he can't see that he's talking about himself while insulting Colby Covington. But either way, I respect Gilbert Burns for taking on this matchup, but we've got to be honest here. Chimaev's a big middleweight. Burns is a big lightweight. Even if Burns is a little bit better than Chimaev in skill, which could be the case, and we might find that out this weekend, Chimaev is about 10 pounds of muscle bigger than him. There's no wasted mass on Chimaev. 10 pounds of muscle bigger than Gilbert Burns. I think he's going to throw him around like a bitch and beat him up. And I think it's going to really, like... I hope Usman's in the crowd because I want a camera on him. I want a camera on him. Like, you know how they had a camera on Cyril Gane when Tom Aspinall destroyed Alexander Volkov in the first round? And he was like... really good, guys. You know, like, there was like a sense of, oh my God, what am I witnessing here? I want a camera on Usman in the crowd when Chimaev fights Gilbert Burns, because in the case that Chimaev runs through Gilbert Burns like he has all of his other moments of competition in his career, I want to see Usman's face. I really want to see it. I don't know if he's going to be there. He might be there because he's been training Gilbert Burns, and that really says something about what Usman as a champion is noticing in Khamzat Chimaev. Usman is no longer a teammate of Gilbert Burns of Vicente Luque. They could be his next title defenses after the Leon Edwards matchup. If he beats Leon Edwards and makes a successful title defense, he's going to be looking at, because he won't move up to middleweight because Adesanya is the same ethnicity as him. If he beats Leon Edwards in a title defense, he's going to be looking at Gilbert Burns if he beats Chimaev, or the winner of Luque versus Muhammad. Kamaru Usman is compromising himself as a champion by allowing himself to be seen in a training room by his next possible future title contenders in order to prevent Khamzat Chimaev from getting to him as a title contender. Seriously. That's like a sign to me that Usman knows what he's watching. He knows, and I believe this as well. Usman doesn't finish Li Jingliang in the first round. He just doesn't. Maybe he gets a KO in the second or third out of nowhere. Maybe he takes him to a decision and wins that way instead. Maybe Li Jingliang cracks him with a big punch and Usman wobbles but then manages to rally and get a win. There's always some competition. There's always some competition. When you see a guy go out there and they destroy someone with first round KOs, there is an element of it where you're thinking, okay, Ngannou, maybe when he fights Stipe for the belt in the first place, for the first time that he fights him, what happens if that KO doesn't land? There ain't much fluke in dominant grappling. It's not by chance that you just ragdoll someone and destroy them and out-grapple them at every turn, out-scramble them, take dominant position and destroy them. It's pretty hard to fluke that kind of stuff. Like, maybe you could catch someone's back in a transition, but to pick someone up like a baby while speaking to the UFC brass and heads of the fucking organization, and then slam the guy down and just brutalize him on the ground however you want, there's not much fluke in that. I'm not going to count out Khamzat Chimaev here. This video could age terribly, and there's a part of me that would find it funny if it did. I don't see Gilbert Burns beating Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev's going to be too aggressive, too confident. I think he might go for some big shots on Gilbert Burns on the feet. It's going to make Gilbert Burns be in a defensive mindset early on, because let's be real, Burns has been KO'd before in his career. If Dan Hooker can KO you at any point, Chimaev with his power to KO big middleweights like Gerald Meerschaert, who typically doesn't get KO'd in his career, by the way. Like Gerald Meerschaert, maybe he's been KO'd before in his career, but you can't say he's a chinny guy for the middleweight division. He can take a shot. He took big shots off Muradov for the first round and rallied back to get the win in the second. He's no slouch. Muradov's a big middleweight himself. Khamzat Chimaev has big middleweight levels of power, if not light heavyweight levels of power. Sparked out Aliskerov, and I see Adesanya picking against Khamzat Chimaev like the petty bitch that he is. Like, pointing to the Aliskerov matchup as if it's some sign of a hole. Look at what this regional guy did to Khamzat Chimaev. He stuffed all of the takedowns and stuff like that. Aliskerov, if he beat Khamzat Chimaev on that night, I'm just going to say this, would be following the career path of Khamzat Chimaev right now. He's right now not lost a fight since that Khamzat Chimaev fight. He's gone on to win all of his next fights. Aliskerov is a savage in his own right. And if he beat Khamzat Chimaev on that night, which I believe he was favoured to do so, by the way, I think Khamzat Chimaev was the underdog. I've seen a lot of people mentioning that. Aliskerov would be following this same route. He would be following the Shavkat Rakhmonov road into the rankings of the welterweight division and making waves in his own right in the UFC as an undefeated prospect. But Khamzat Chimaev took that from him. That's not a hole in his game to point at. Aliskerov is a savage. You know what I mean? It's like saying, Dricus du Plessis is never going to be anything. He lost to Roberto Soldic. You can't do that. Some of these regional guys are better than some of the guys in the UFC up until a certain point in the rankings, of course. I'm going with Khamzat Chimaev. And another thing I want to mention here as well, big moments for Gilbert Burns. What have we seen in the big moments of Gilbert Burns in his career? This is arguably as big of a fight for Gilbert Burns because of the hype around it as his title shot was. When he fought Usman, he was crying on the way out nearly, sweating profusely, looked like he was terrified to be in there. He made stupid decision making because he was in fear of Usman. He rocked Usman badly in the first round and then laid on his back for 3 minutes, letting Usman kick his legs. Don't understand why he did that to this day. I picked him to win by first round KO with a left hook counter on Usman. He literally was about to follow that exact prediction that I made for him, and he just lays on his back for 3 minutes in fear because he didn't get Usman out of there with one big shot. I'm very worried about Gilbert Burns just not showing up to the moment. Chimaev has that undefeated arrogance that can carry you forward in your career. And I think he's going to use that against Gilbert Burns. And I'll call this right now, regardless of what happens in the contest. Here's another prediction I'll make. When the two of them are in the cage, and the announcements are getting prepared, and they're both pacing back and forth in their corner, Chimaev is going to be ultra confident, staring down Gilbert Burns, loosening up his shoulders, shadow boxing a little bit, clapping his hands together, woo, letting out a bit of a Ric Flair in the corner, getting really amped up, really hyped up, really confident, and the camera's going to cut to Gilbert Burns, and I'm making this prediction, and he's going to look like he's shitting himself. I bet you, even if Burns randomly catches Chimaev on the chin with a punch, and Chimaev trades with him a little bit too long, and Burns gets clipped, and Burns clips him with a punch and puts him away, I'll bet you Burns is going to look like he's shat himself in the build-up to the announcements, and Khamzat Chimaev is going to get this one done by first round TKO. I think he goes out there, lands a big blow on Gilbert Burns, throws front kicks down the middle with like absolute authority and absolute, I can't remember the other word I'm looking for here. Oh, it's right on the tip of my tongue. It's going to come to me in a second like it always does. But Khamzat Chimaev is going to march forward, and he's going to blast these shots with severe intent. That's what I'm looking for. Everything is going to be intended to damage Gilbert Burns. He's going to back Gilbert Burns up. There's going to be a massive size difference. Burns is going to be on the defense. Burns is going to be against a cage. Burns is going to try and throw a hook to alleviate some pressure and try and throw some big power back at Chimaev to make him back up and stop the pressure. And when he goes for that after a first few seconds of Chimaev backing him up with big, intentful shots, Burns is going to get double-legged, and he might stuff it immediately, but then Chimaev is going to take the back position with the body lock, pick him up like a lightweight that he is, slam him to the ground because he's got a 10-pound weight difference, and he's a better grappler than Gilbert Burns anyway, put him on the ground, start beating him up, put hooks in on the back. Maybe Gilbert Burns has a bit of a better scramble than Li Jingliang. Chimaev manages to scramble quite well, lands more shots on Gilbert Burns, takes the back of Gilbert Burns, puts the body lock in. Burns is going to fight the hands very well for a very long time, and maybe Chimaev won't be able to get a rear naked choke early on that he might be looking for here. Gilbert Burns is going to pride himself on not being submitted by Khamzat Chimaev, and Khamzat Chimaev is going to roll him over, take the back mount on top of Gilbert Burns. Burns is going to be belly down on the canvas, and Chimaev is going to pound him out by TKO behind the ear with big shots. TKO to ground and pound. Burns will be so focused on not getting rear naked choked that Chimaev will finish him in the first round by TKO, whilst Burns is focusing on trying not to get choked out because of his jiu-jitsu ego that he has. There you go. Maybe it goes otherwise. Maybe I've jinxed everything. I'm willing to risk it. That's the fun of this sport, I guess. Chimaev gets this one done. First round TKO. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip, I'll see you later. And I'll make another prediction. Usman takes if Usman beats Edwards in July, I bet you he takes another 6-7 months off for no reason to try and make Khamzat have to go through Covington first. See you later. Toodle pip. Goodbye.